like to call this May 20th, 2021 Strongsville City School Board meeting to order. Mr. Anagnastu, would you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Mrs. Salee? Mr. Micko?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mrs. Hauser?
Here.
You're all present. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on our agenda is our district goals. Our district goals remain student academic achievement and growth, financial prudence, and community engagement. And tonight I have two examples of how we accomplish those goals. Earlier in the month, or earlier last month, we highlighted for the 8th straight year, our district has been nationally recognized with the Best Communities in Music Education designation by the NAMM Foundation. This designation recognizes and celebrates school districts for their support and exceptionally high commitment to music education. As an example, with over 1,300 students from 5th to 12th grade enrolled in our music curriculum at SES, it truly takes an entire community to support this premier music program we have built in Strongsville. We appreciate the efforts of the Strongsville Instrumental Music Boosters and the Choral Boosters for their dedication to helping us provide these music opportunities for our students. And I think that's a great example of all three of our goals, academic achievement and growth, along with financial prudence, and along with community engagement. And the other example I'm going to highlight is for academic achievement and growth, and I thought this was really cool. At the high school, Mr. Knapp's second period government class has been working in groups over the past few weeks on a civic action project. His students picked a current issue in America and then completed a task to have an effect on that issue, whether that be writing a letter to a government official, conducting a survey or a petition, or various other examples. I'm going to give a shout out to Strongsville High School students Blake Miller and Charlie Wendenhoff. They decided to tackle the problem of political polarization in the United States. And for their civic action, they contacted and set up an interview with Representative Anthony Gonzalez, and Blake and Charlie conducted the virtual interview in front of the entire class. And I believe our superintendent, Dr. Ryba, was there, so I'm going to turn it over to him to see what he learned.
Well, I was in the area. We had student focus groups going on, so I was working with the student focus groups and in the same area. So just as you said, a phenomenal job of our students taking a lead, applying their knowledge, bringing in obviously a very important leader in our community and state. And I just got to say, that's one thing to contact a legislator, bring them in, but I do have to compliment the two young men. The way they handled themselves, the way they questioned, the way they led the dialogue was truly impressive, and I think our students benefited from the work that was done. So congratulations to our teacher, who did a phenomenal job creating a project that had meaning and value to what the students were learning, not only in the classroom but outside, as well as to our two students who facilitated a meaningful discussion.
So I'm fond of the phrase learning in action, and I think that was a great example of just that, learning in action. Next on our agenda is public comment. I don't have any slips. Is there anybody who wanted to appear before the board for public comment? Hearing none, next I turn it over again to Dr. Ryba for recognitions.
Well, we have a series of recognitions tonight, and we're going to start with honoring some very valued Strongsville City School team members that have decided to put in their retirement notice for this year, and so we're here to recognize some of them that were able to be with us tonight. So I'm going to turn over to our Assistant Superintendent, Jennifer Pelko, to lead the recognition. Jenny?
Thank you, Dr. Ryba. This is just one of my favorite evenings of the year to recognize the service, the dedication, and the effort of our retirees here tonight and listed in the agenda. It's always exciting to highlight all of their accolades and the things that they've done for the students and staff here in Strongsville City Schools. So I totaled up their total years, and so We have represented over 186 years of experience. And so, you know, it's congratulations to all of them, but it is truly a loss for us because all of that experience and knowledge and sharing with our more younger staff is going to greatly be missed. So with that, I would like to call up Ms. Joanna O'Brien. She is the secretary of our Union 290, and she's going to be assisting me tonight passing out the awards. Thank you, Joanna, for being here. Prior to highlighting a few that were able to join us tonight, I just want to read off all of our retirees this evening. So Lori Greenland, who is my executive secretary, and she is celebrating 27 years in our district. She does a phenomenal job, and she will be missed. We also have teachers, Val Adkins, who teaches Title I at Maraski, and she's been with us for 32 years. Deb Gizzy, 7th grade social studies at the middle school, 30 years for her. Miriam Klein, 6th grade teacher. She teaches English at the middle school, 26 years for her. Lynn Wisniewski, music at Sarar, and she is celebrating 35 years tonight. Deb Zudell-Dickey, she also teaches music, but at Maraski Elementary, and she's had 13 and a half years with us. And we also have a few non-certificated staff. We have Melvin Davis, who's been a monitor at Strongsville High School, and he's been with us 3 years, but it probably seems like a lot longer, right, Mel? And then John Gorski, a custodian at Kinsner, celebrating 20 years. So I just wanted to read everybody. And with that, I will invite Deb Gizzy up to the podium to join me. So Debbie began her career with Strongsville in 1991, teaching math and social studies at Center Middle School. She enjoyed middle school so much that that's where she stayed for her entire 30-year career. Debbie, you are one of the most kind and generous people I know. You are always willing to go above and beyond for your students, and the same holds true for your colleagues as well. Your creativity as a teacher has helped you to design lessons for students that engage them and especially allow them to build positive relationships with each other in your classroom. You have served as a team leader, a coach, a mentor to so many throughout your career. And as your former principal, I can attest of your helpful and supportive nature as well as your beautiful spirit of gratitude. Thank you, Debbie, for all you've done over the years for students, and you truly have made a difference in the minds and the hearts of so many. Wishing you all the best in your retirement. Congratulations.
Okay. I really didn't want to say anything, but since I'm up here, I thought, oh, well. So first, when I look out in the audience, there are teachers that I taught. That scares me. But they're being recognized, so that's a good thing. And then I see students out there, other students that are a little younger. You guys aren't really that old, but younger students getting awards. I feel pretty good about that because probably they'll get up here and say, I might have helped a little, just a little. And then board members, I've had some of your students, and of course, they were all excellent students. And I have my sister out there and my friends who also are a big part of who I am today, so thanks. I enjoyed every minute, but of course, I only remember the good minutes. So I'll leave it with that, but I really did enjoy my 30 years. Thank you so much. Oh, and I forgot I could have taken that off when I talked.
It's okay. We heard you, Deb. Congratulations. Next, I'll invite Lynn Wisniewski up to the podium. So Lynn began her career in Strongsville in 1986 as a music teacher at Zellers Elementary. I think for a time you even taught music at the high school, if I looked right, the high school, Muraski Elementary, Center Middle School, and Allen Elementary, and then back to Zellers, right? And then finally landing at your home right now at Sorare Elementary. Did I get all that right?
I also taught
Oh.
at Whitney for a little bit.
Oh, Whitney, I missed that one. Okay, very good, very good. I find this one hard to believe, but according to your principal, one of your favorite things to do is teach the recorder. And pre-COVID, you even put together a recorder club for some of your fourth graders during recess time. Is that true? Okay. So Lynn, you're just a very calm soul, and you don't let anything ruffle your feathers. I guess that's probably true if you have all those recorders going on at one time. You have to be calm, right? You're plugged. So thank you for always going with the flow, teaching without a complaint when you had to travel and you didn't have your own room, and always making your colleagues laugh with your great stories. We thank you for your 35 years. Enjoy your retirement.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations to Lynn. Is Miss Sudell here? There she is. Come on down, Miss Sudell. I tried to sing the best I could, but it didn't go very well. But that's what I heard, that Mr. Griffin left a message on my voicemail when I asked, what would you say about Deb? And he sang to me, "Good morning, Mrs. Palco," and I didn't do it justice. But anyway, Deb began her teaching here in Strongsville in 2008 as our music teacher at Muraski Elementary. Her passion not only for music, but for the wellness of her students was always so apparent. On her last day with us, I was able to go over to Muraski and see her visiting each and every student, and I'm not sure you got through one goodbye without tears.
No.
You always wanted them to feel important and heard in her classroom. From the way you greeted them each day to even teaching them some great dances, you wanted them to enjoy music as much as you do. Deb is a gentle soul, and her willingness to help, whether it is with curriculum mapping or building work, was always appreciated. Wishing you all the best on your well-deserved retirement.
I just want to say what a wonderful experience it was teaching in Strongsville. Really the only place I've taught. And I got into teaching after I was 50 years old. So it was a wonderful way to end a multi-faceted life career program. And I really appreciate all the good things that I experienced here, all the collaboration with the people at Muraski. It was one of the most special schools to work at. I was so lucky to be there. So I want to thank everyone for my experience.
Next, I'd like to bring up Melvin Davis. So as I said before, Mel has only worked with us for 3 short years, but again, as you're monitoring high school students in the cafeteria, I'm sure it seemed a lot longer on some days. But your calm and supportive nature of our students is so much appreciated. You have been known to provide positive guidance to students and build just a great rapport with them in the cafeteria. Also, your coworkers appreciate your willingness to work collaboratively with them. And Mrs. Harb and Mr. Wingler both commend you on the hard work that you have shown and the positive attitude that you brought to work with you each and every day. So enjoy your retirement, Mel.
Thank you, everyone, and it was a great second career for me, and I just want to wish the board and the school district continued achievement, successful achievement, and growth in their mission of supporting students. Both of my children attended, and my son went on to get his doctorate at Ohio State, and is now teaching at Kutztown University in Pennsylvania. So it's quite an achievement. And I also want to say it's been great working with the staff. We always work together to solve our problems. Thank you.
And finally, I would like to invite up Mr. John Gorski. So John has served as a custodian in Strongsville since the year 2000, where you began at Sarar Elementary. And then you worked at Whitney, and most recently have been at Kinsner since 2002. Yeah, close enough. So John is quite the handyman, always giving his principal, Mr. Diedrich, tips on taking care of his yard. And you're also a great weatherman, I heard, that can actually predict if we're going to have a snow day or not.
Oh, okay.
That's what he said. He said you're like 100%.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking, Cameron, you might need to give him a call and save you some 4 a.m. wake-ups.
Well, John, what do you think about Sunday? We got commencement. Feeling like good weather on Sunday?
That's it.
Weather on Sunday. What's Sunday going to be like? We have commencement on Sunday, and we want it to be very
Next
nice.
Sunday.
Hot, sunny.
Hot
Well, there we
and
go.
sunny.
Hot and sunny. I like that.
We'll
That's
go
good.
with it.
Mr. Wingler and I approve of that weather forecast.
So, John, I really hope that you enjoy your well-deserved retirement, and hopefully you now have lots of time to spend with your grandchildren and your dogs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
grandkids.
Grandkids, very good. Congratulations
Thank
to you
you.
on your retirement. Would you like to say?
Oh, I'm kind of good with that. I
Okay.
just want to thank everybody here. Thank you for everything that you've done for me over the years. I missed my Kinsner class. Anybody here from Kinsner? No. Thank you, Steve. Steve's there. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
Once again, congratulations to all of our retirees. We thank you. We're going to miss you. Please keep in touch.
Once again, congratulations to all of our retirees, and thank you for the countless years of service. Whether it was 3 years or 35 years, you've truly had a positive impact on our students and our district and our community, so thank you for your service. At this time, it's my privilege to turn this over to our middle school principal, Ms. Jessica Boytum, to go with our next recognition on the agenda tonight. So, Jessica?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I feel privileged to be here tonight as I'm going to be recognizing one of Strongsville Middle School teachers, Mrs. Carla Gannum. Carla, come on up. Carla Gannum has the opportunity to teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grader art at our middle school. And today we are recognizing her because she is one of 15 educators who have received the Artsonia 2021 Art Education Leadership Award. Carla was presented this 10 years ago by another administrator saying, hey, I want you to use Artsonia. She's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then she went home and she's like, what's Artsonia? And since then, she's sort of embodied it and utilized it to its fullest, almost becoming someone that advocates for it to other professionals. She's sought out by other educators in the profession and how she utilizes it. And for those of you that don't know what Artsonia it is, it's an online gallery where teachers can showcase student work to their parents and for their other students to see artwork. And this year alone, Mrs. Ganem, as well as our other art teachers, have showcased over 6,000 pieces of art from our middle school students, which is quite an accomplishment. Mrs. Ganem also is innovative, creative. She showcases the positive culture that we ask for all of our educators to embody. She's a wonderful role model, and to receive this award, one needs to exemplify all those things, not only in their classroom, but we're very appreciative that she does this within our halls and among our students. So congratulations to Mrs. Ganem.
Thank you, Mrs. Boyton. I wanted to say thank you to everybody here, our awesome administrative staff at our school, throughout the district, and all of the leadership. We have a tremendous support from our Board of Education for all of the arts programs and the fine arts. So we've got a great team at Strongsville Middle School of art teachers and throughout the district. I wanted to thank Kim Gary for nominating me for this award. We worked very well together. She's the current art teacher at Moraski Elementary, so I miss having her, but I'm glad to teach all of the kids that she teaches and see them up at the middle school. So I'm proud to be part of a program that we get to all work together, K to 12, and make a better creative atmosphere for the kids. So thank you everyone for your support, and I'm honored to get this award. Thank you, Jessica, too.
I would just like to say, congratulations, Carla. And I know the award tonight is about art, but Carla truly is an educational leader in our district, in art, in classroom, in just what we do as a school district to help better ourselves for our kids. And, when we take a look at all of our teachers and staff and administrators and what they did to step up during this pandemic, Carla was one of those that stood up with the rest of them, but stood up and took another step forward to say, whatever you need, I'm here to lead, I'm here to support. So thank you for all that you've done for us and the art department in our school district. So congratulations on this accomplishment, which is well-deserved, and just what you've done for our district in the middle school. So thank you. And finally, it wouldn't be a May meeting without recognizing the outstanding accomplishments of our DECA program. So at this time, it's my privilege to bring Ms. Jenna Namick and Ms. Jessica Frenchick, DECA co-advisors, up to the stage to recognize our national competition qualifiers.
Hello, thank you for having us, and congratulations to our retirees. And to my best friend since kindergarten, Mrs. Ganem, on her art award tonight. So Mrs. Namick and I are honored to be here. Last year happened to be Mrs. Namick's first year with us in the DECA program, and she has been the best person that I could ever imagine working with and being a team member with to get through not only the pandemic, but to prepare all of our students for the competition that they had this year and last year. So DECA is an association of marketing students for students who are interested in careers in hospitality, finance, business, marketing, and it really covers anything that a kid can be interested in going into the future. We have an amazing program here that is administratively supported by our teachers, and we have had great success through the years, which will continue and far succeed what we've been doing here in the future. So Mrs. Namick?
I'd like to take a moment to recognize the students and just to say we have our national qualifiers here. So when you participate in DECA, you compete in competitions at the district level, state level, and then the national level. And in a normal year, 15 students is our goal. We would love to take 15 students to nationals. But in a year kind of like this, it's insane that we had 15 students qualify to make it to the national competition. And I think that's just a true testament of the resiliency of Strongsville High School students and the students that we're going to recognize tonight. And what struck me the most with this group of students is that they didn't complain, they didn't get frustrated, they put their heads down and they figured out how to overcome the obstacles that came their way. So to the seniors that are here tonight, I just want to thank you guys for giving it your all despite those obstacles that you had to face. And to the juniors, I'm so excited for next year. Hopefully we can get back to normal, and I can't wait to see what you guys accomplish. And thank you all for giving us the opportunity to recognize these students because they truly do deserve it with everything that they dealt with this year. So here are some quick facts that we wanted to highlight for all of our DECA accomplishments for the 2021 school year. We were fortunate enough to still host a mock competition with the help of Mr. Wingler. This helped prepare our students for the competitions they faced this year. We took 105 DECA members to the DECA district competition with about 375 other students participating at this event. We had 71 of the 105 students qualify for the state competition. 17 took first place, 16 took second place, and 14 took third place. Of those 71 students who made it to the state competition, we had 41 qualify for the top 10, and 15 who are here tonight who made it to the national competition. And then we do have one student here, senior Angelina DeCola, who earned a recognition for having a top role play score at the national competition. So students, when I call your name, please stand so you can be recognized. First up, we have senior Emily Lytle, who was in the apparel and accessories marketing event. She placed second at the state competition, and she is going to be attending Miami University for biology and pre-med. Next, we have senior Angelina DeCola. She placed third at the state competition in the Automotive Services Marketing Series, and she is going to attend Kent State University for business. Next, we have senior team Max Prock and Josie Klein, who came in fourth in the Sports and Entertainment Marketing Team Decision Making. Max will be attending Xavier University for business analytics, and Josie will be attending the University of Cincinnati for engineering. Next, we have senior team Sarah Schoenberger and Sophie Allange. They were in business law and ethics team decision making and took fourth place at the state competition. Sarah will be attending Denison University with an undecided major, and Sophie will be attending Ohio University for English and Literature. Our last senior is Justin White. He placed fifth at the state competition in the Business Finance Series, and he will be attending Purdue University for Chemical Engineering. Now to our juniors, we have our team Jack Vargo and Josh Stevens, who placed second at states in hospitality services and team decision making. Our next team of juniors is Emily Brewer and Ava Faltroni. These girls came in third at the state competition, and they were in travel and tourism team decision making. We have junior Megan McFadden, who came in third place at the state competition for the Quick Serve Restaurant Management Series. We have next Meredith Klinzing and Miriam Saleh, who came in fourth place for the Marketing Management and Team Decision Making. And lastly, we have junior Naomi Rohrbach, who came in fifth place for the Retail Merchandising Series. Congratulations to all of you. You make us proud.
Thank you, Ms. Namick and Ms. Frenchek, for all the work that you did, especially during these difficult times. And congratulations once again to all of our students for this phenomenal accomplishment. It's a huge accomplishment during any year, but especially the year like we've had. So once again, let's give all of our DECA finalists a nice round of applause. Mr. Micko, we are going to do some of our administrative leadership staff recommendations before we get to the agenda, but I'll pause here if you would like to have any closing comments on the recognitions.
I just want to highlight the DECA students. Normally our practice is during these recognitions, I was going to say recommendations, recognitions, is to have the whoever's being recognized walk past us, and we offer our congratulations and we shake hands. And I know I, for one, am looking forward to being able to do that soon. But until then, one of my habits is always to let those people know how proud we are of them. And so I'm going to do that publicly for everyone. I want the students to know that we are very proud of you. You have done great things in your individual accomplishments, and one of the reasons I'm so proud of you is because you're examples for young Mustangs coming up through the ranks. There's a few of them in the crowd tonight. They now know that if they set their mind to it, they can be outstanding in apparel and accessories, or maybe automotive services, or maybe marketing management, or maybe sports and entertainment. And they can also know that regardless of what they do in these competitions, they can go on to study college for chemical engineering or any other kind of discipline. And they can have their feet in different worlds and try different things. And I think that's outstanding, so I want to congratulate all the students. I want to congratulate the parents who helped push them along when needed and encourage them when needed. And ultimately, I want to thank the teachers who gave them that guidance. It's wonderful at this May meeting because we get to see our retirees and let them know how proud we are of them, of the example they've given. And it's kind of neat when you have a retiree who can comment on her fellow teachers who once were students, not fellow students. That was really neat, and I think that's something special that we should recognize and let everyone know how proud we are of them, of the example our employees set, so that the younger employees can set their mind to being great examples also. So again, we're proud of everyone, and thank you for all your support.
So I'd like to turn it over again to Assistant Superintendent Jenny Pelko, who has a couple administrative and leadership recommendations for the board that we'd like to highlight and introduce you to prior to the HR section. So Jenny?
Thank you, Dr. Ryba. So I have a few hires this time in the agenda for your consideration, but I did want to bring to your attention two of them. The first one is our new assistant treasurer. Upon your approval tonight, Nick Mancini will become our new assistant treasurer, working directly with George. Nick, you want to come up so we can see who you are? This is Nick, everybody. Nick comes to us from West Branch Local Schools, where he has served as a treasurer's assistant for the last year. He has had a long-standing career in wrestling and even served as a coach at Heidelberg. Is that correct? Correct. Yeah. So congratulations to you. You picked a really, really good night to come because tonight George is presenting his 5-year forecast to us. So it'd be good. You might want to stick around and listen to some of that. So with that, I'll let you share a few words.
All right, well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited for this opportunity. I'd like to thank the administrative team that I went through the interview process with for selecting me for this role, and I really look forward to serving this exemplary school district and community. So thank you all very much.
Next, I want to bring up Miss Katie Hawk. So Katie's been with the district, I believe, since 2008 at Sarar Elementary, where she began teaching as a second grade teacher. Most recently, she has served the district as one of our literacy coaches. She's served as a TBT coach, a tech coach in the district, and has just provided such exemplary leadership to our teachers and our staff, especially most recently in her role as a literacy coach. So I am thrilled to announce that Katie will become our new assistant principal at the elementary level. She will be at Kinsner and Muraski, helping to support our students there. She will also help to coordinate our social emotional learning initiatives within the district across all 5 elementary buildings. And we couldn't be more, proud to have you on board and our administrative team. So, congratulations. Thank you.
Well, I just want to start by Cameron, Jenny, members of the board, I am so incredibly excited for this opportunity. It's great to see all the teachers here and, talk about their students and where they've come. And, Strongsville has always been home to me. I went through the Strongsville schools. I graduated from Strongsville High School, and I've devoted my whole teaching career here so far. And so I'm just so incredibly excited to continue at Kinsner and Moraski as the assistant principal and get to know all the staff. Most of them I already know, and the parents and the students. So thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you.
I had an opportunity to be in one of the rounds of interviews for Nick's position, and just so impressed with his drive, dedication, his goals. And I know you're going to be not only a great fit for the department, but you're going to help move the department forward. That's what we want of all of our employees, is not just to be a part of it, but to help get us better. And I know you're going to do that. And Katie, I think I'm just as excited as you are for the opportunity for you. I remember when I came back to the district and was assistant superintendent, and at that time we were doing a lot of grade level stuff, and I went to visit the second grade level team, and I left, and I think I was talking to Andy Trujillo, and I said, who is that second grade teacher that is up there leading the show? I mean, all the teachers were just like, okay, Katie, yes, Katie, whatever you say, and just kind of organizing, leading, and I said, she's a natural born leader, and one day she's going to be an administrator. So awesome to see, however many years that's been later, that you're here, and I know you're going to be you've been a great addition through all of your roles in the classroom, a literacy coach, and the wealth of knowledge you bring to the administrative team is going to be phenomenal. So just so happy for both of you, and happy for us that you're a part of our team. So congratulations. And before we move on with any other recognitions, I think a lot of other people took the cue to exit. But if there's anybody left here that has the opportunity to enjoy the rest of your evening, you may do so at this time. So thank you.
Or you're welcome to stay, because it's really exciting.
Nick, I think you were kind of told you have to stay, right?
I left it up to him.
Yeah.
So on behalf of the board, I just want to congratulate Nick and Katie, and we're excited to have both of you on board and look forward to great things from both of you. Next on our agenda is approval of minutes. We have the April 15th regular Board of Education meeting. All district video and audio recordings are a permanent part of the minutes and available on our website. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Hearing none. George, would you take the roll?
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Salee?
Yes.
Mr. Micko?
Yes, and the motion carries. And next, speaking of five-year forecast, next is our treasurer's report. Mr. Anagnostou.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. I have a series of items for your consideration tonight, with the first being the five-year forecast. So with that, I do have the presentation that goes along with it. So what I'm going to ask the board and Dr. Ribo and Mrs. Palco to come down to the first row so we can bring down the screen, and I'll present the five-year forecast to the board and the community. Thanks for plugging in. So I'm going to thank Dave Binkley in advance. It's a loose connection, and he's going to be holding the cable as we present. So yeah, grab a seat, Dave. All right. So I'm going to be efficient to go through it, but also make sure I cover all the points. So the 5-year forecast is an item that we have to have the board adopt and submit to the Ohio Department of Education twice annually. The first is in November. It used to be in October, but with the recent law change, it was in November. And the November fall forecast is more aligned to the district's annual budget at the beginning of the school year, and the May forecast is we're kind of forecasting out the remaining of the current fiscal year, and it also sets the ball rolling for the budget process for the upcoming school year. So it's more aligned. So the current year is forecasting out the rest of the expenses and revenues, and for the next school year, fiscal year 22, is setting the budget for that fiscal year and the out years. The 5-year forecast is just the district's general fund. The district has various other funds, but the forecast only covers the general fund, which is the district's main operating fund. What we're going to go over is the major assumptions, where I'm probably going to spend most of the time, then also highlight revenues, expenditures, and then conclude with the 5-year forecast summary. So the major assumptions, revenue, property tax collections is our biggest revenue source. The last 3 years, the average gross collection rate was 99.53%. This gross collection rate includes collections plus prior year delinquencies. In the fall forecast, we did decrease this amount because it was unknown of the impact of COVID, but with the actual collections coming in the fall, there was, and in the fall, with the following spring as well, there was no, there was a material impact related to COVID regarding collections. So the forecast assumes a normalized collection rate. Also for fiscal year 21, there is, or for calendar year, collection year 21, which is the remaining for the upcoming fall, the collection rate is going to decrease by 2.1, but this is more of a calculation. Property taxes are based on the assessed valuation. There's a few properties in there that are going to come off the duplicate, so they shouldn't be counted as part of the calculations, but since they are in assessed valuations, I just needed to decrease the collection rate so revenues are not overinflated. However, there is no net loss in revenue, as these properties historically have not paid property taxes due to being exempt. The major assumptions continued. As mentioned, the forecast is based on the assessed valuations. For collection year 2022, it is a triennial budget year for Cuyahoga County. With the property values as they are, I am forecasting an increase for residential values and commercial values. This is just my projection. The county is going to come out with their actuals towards the end of the calendar year. I'm expecting closer to a 10% increase. I did look at Zillow and the market rate report over the past year. There was an 11% increase, so I assumed a 10% increase for the triennial update for next year's assessed valuations for residential properties, and following an 8% for commercial properties. And how I determine the 8% for the commercial properties is with the last sexennial budget update, when the values increased by 10% for residential, commercial increased by 8%, so it kind of followed suit. Also, just because the rates increase, the values increase, doesn't mean that we're going to gain additional taxes. Where it impacts is going to impact the effective rates. So as values go up, the effective rates are going to go down. That way we collect the same level of taxes. However, there is inside millage, which is not subject to the effective rate, so there will be a slight gain, but not a material gain. Additional assumptions for revenues regarding the assessed valuation. So as we may have heard in the news recently, South Park Mall did sell. It was valued at $181 million with the county. It sold for it sold for close to $60 million, which is a decrease of about $121 million, or a decrease in assessed valuation of $42 million. So I did assume a decrease in assessed valuation for the sale of the mall, as it will probably likely the value decrease with the county based on the sale. However, due to the assumption of the increase in commercial property, the net impact is not going to be the full amount. It'll be about a net impact of $19 million in total for commercial property decrease in assessed valuation. Then additionally, the forecast assumes a potential refund for the mall, as they have 2 pending tax complaints, and the forecast assumes the worst case scenario. Nothing has been determined yet. It is still pending, but felt since it is pending and with the recent sale that we should assume something for those pending cases. Then additionally, in 2016, residents renewed a 5-year $6 million levy with collections beginning January of 2018. The forecast assumes the levy will expire in tax year December 31, 2021, which is this December, and collections will continue through the following December of 2022. Our first opportunity to put this renewal on the ballot is this November, and I will begin the process with that with the first resolution of 2 at our next board meeting. And then in May 2019, residents approved the 5-year $5.9 million levy with collections beginning January 2020. The forecast assumes the levy will expire in tax year December 31, 2023, with collections continuing through December 31, 2024, the following year. State funding, the 2019 per pupil and foundation revenue amount is the base aid amount used for fiscal year 2020 and beyond. During fiscal year 2020, we experienced a 9% or $950,000 reduction in state funding due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For this fiscal year, it was partially restored in January 22nd of 2021, and also with that, casino revenues have been reduced due to the casinos being closed for 3 months. For fiscal year 2022 and 2023, the recent governor's biennium budget has restored funding levels to the 2019 pre-COVID levels. However, the state budget is subject to change as the House of Representatives voted for passage of the fair funding formula, and at this time the proposal is with the Senate for deliberation. So due to the uncertainty of the fair funding formula, the forecast assumes the governor's biennium budget as the benchmark. So we'll continue to follow. The state has to adopt the budget by June 30th. There is rumors that the Senate might be proposing another formula, but at this time, what we know is the governor's proposal is at current 2019 levels, and which is the same assumption for 2024 and 25, which is the following biennium, keeping the funding levels the same. There was no indication in either proposal that the district was going to lose funds. Historically, in a 5-year forecast, since we were always on a guarantee, I would reduce state revenue 5% of the guarantee, which is about $450,000 a year. and then the following budget would accumulate to about close to $1 million a year. So that was in the fall. That is not in this forecast based on most recent information that we know now. Moving on to expenditures, anticipating 5 new positions in the general fund next year, which are the 3 literacy coach positions that were grant funded. That grant is ending, and those positions on the general fund, and then also 2 additional administrative positions that are becoming on as well. The forecast assumes all union agreements as currently defined. Healthcare premiums remain flat for fiscal year 20, and for the current fiscal year, we saw a 3% increase. For fiscal year 2022, we will experience a 1.3% increase, and for fiscal years 23 to 25, we're projecting an annual increase of 8%, which is the industry standard. We have been fortunate the past couple of years where we have been well under that industry standard of 8%, but with as being self-insured, our premiums are based on our claims, so it could be cyclical. So the average of the 8% increase for those out years. And then during fiscal year 20 and 21, the district did experience cost savings within certain categories due to remote learning, such as substitute costs, overtime, associated benefits that are percentage of salary, and certain purchase services due to school closures. As the district resumes normal operations, those benefits will be restored. A purchase service, it increased by $900,000 from fiscal year 20 to 21, which was last school year to this school year. The increase is due to $535,000 for the Strongsville online learning option. Fiscal year 21 was $535,000. There is a placeholder in there for fiscal year 22 and 23 of $180,000, but these funds may also be moved to ESSER 2 or ESSER 3 as we're finalizing those plans, or based on attendance or interest may not be used at all. So currently as a placeholder. Increase in tuition to other districts increased by $400,000, $300,000 of which was for community schools. We did see a spike this year primarily to the online community schools, so I think it was related to COVID. As we'll see in the forecast, I am projecting an increase in community schools, but not as much as it increased this year. And the purchase service are projected to increase annually due to tuition in other districts, primarily the community schools, which has been based on the historical averages. Materials and supplies is forecasted to increase by $827,000, and increase based on $250,000 for additional PPE supplies and $577,000 due to 2020 savings or underspent budget, which was kind of due to the school shutdown and remote, so restoring those costs. And the primary increase in capital outlay, as we'll see in the slide, is the purchase of Chromebooks in infrastructure to support the district's one-to-one technology initiative. And then for additional assumptions and details, see the accompanying 5-year forecast financial report, which we'll also post on the website. Expenditures related to the pandemic, I thought I would touch on these since most of these were one-time and a few continuing. As mentioned, salary and benefits for Remote 2.0 and SES Connects. There was $600,000 in there for fiscal year 21 only. Solo, fiscal year 21, $535,000 in placeholders for 22 and 23. PPE supplies and equipment, increased operations budget by $250,000. Custodial costs, we increased budgeted hours by 31 hours for salaries and benefits. We're going to see an increase in transfers of funds from the general fund by $300,000, $200,000 of which is to food service, where based on the remote days, there wasn't much revenue coming in. However, now that we are back in session, we have seen spikes in March and April, and this should carry into fiscal year 22 as we are continuing the free lunch program for next year. The state is rolling it over, so with being back in school 100% and the free lunch, we should see these increased participation numbers follow through. So I'm kind of excited to see how that turns out with food service. And athletics, due to not too many people being able to be in attendance, we were probably going to have to transfer over $100,000 due to lost ticket revenue. And then due to unprecedented times of the pandemic, we'll need to monitor the following areas for fluctuations: subcosts, solo costs, PPE, athletics, and food service. And then the district has received this additional grant funding. This additional grant funding is not part of the general fund and is not in the 5-year forecast, but I thought I would also use this opportunity to touch on it. And this grant funding is all based on COVID-19, and it needs to be on how the district responds to COVID and prevents COVID. So earlier this year, we received ESSER 1 funding of $407,000, which was utilized for kindergarten Chromebooks, Chromebook cases for grades 3 to 5, a portion of solo hardware and software for remote instruction, and PPE equipment. We received $285,000 in the coronavirus relief funding, which was utilized for PPE supplies, materials, and equipment for sanitization, elementary and middle school desks to replace tables for social distancing, and disinfection sprayers. We received a Broadband Ohio connectivity grant of $21,205, which was used for public Wi-Fi and transportation hotspots. The high school received Library Services Technology CARES mini grant of $3,000, which was utilized for an online digital catalog. And for the upcoming school year, for school year 22 and 23, we'll have ESSER 2 funds, and then we'll have ESSER 3 funds for school year 22 through 24 for a combined total of $6.1 million. And it will be primarily used for summer programming, staffing, software programs to address learning loss, professional development, equipment supplies, and/or capital improvements. We're still finalizing these plans, but also note, I know there's some talk in the community that we're being influxed with all this money. This money cannot be used to offset or supplant general fund expenditures. It needs to be used to supplement current programs, and it needs to be used in connection with responding and preventing the COVID-19. So I just wanted to highlight that point, that these funds must be used in connection with and responding and preventing to COVID-19, and there is strict compliance with ODE that they've been rolling out here publicly, or here recently, and there will be, I think at the next board meeting, Dr. Raiba and I are planning a public comment based on some of the communication that Dr. Raiba has sent out to the parent updates regarding ESSER funds. As part of the compliance piece, there needs to be an opportunity for public input. So general fund revenues, where the money comes from, of the total $85.2 million that we'll receive this year, 68% of it is the local taxes, which is our biggest share, and then state foundation makes up the second most with $9.4 million. Residential and commercial property, as you can see, has pretty much been, it will be consistent from 21. 22 will have a slight decrease based on projected refund, and then 23 to 25 will be consistent depending on if the renewals levies are renewed. And the increase from 19 to 20 and 20 to 21 is due to the additional levy that was passed in 2019. Public utility, in the past I would show this with commercial property, but it is a separate line, and this is one that has been growing annually, and it's based on the public utility infrastructure throughout the city. We have been seeing an average of 6.7% increase in the valuation for public utility. So as these are continued updated and by the utility companies, the valuation continues to grow on these, and this valuation is not subject to the effective rate. So as they continue to increase, it is based on the current tax rate. State foundation, from 2020 to 21, we saw a slight increase based on the restoration of state funding. In 19 to 20 was decreased due to the COVID-19 reductions, partially restored in 20, and then in 21, restored again. In 22 will continue on through the normal rates prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Restricted aid, there is a portion of state foundation, $72,000, that is restricted for other services. Those have been consistent for over the years at $72,000. Property tax allocation, this is our homestead and rollback. Again, it's been consistent over the years. In 23 to 25, the orange is based on the renewal levies. 2016-17 and 17 to 18, there was a drop, which was due to the TPP phase out that was phased out in 2016. Other revenues, we did see spikes in 2019, 20, and 21. These spikes are related to a portion of being increased due to outside tax settlements that we were able to have as part of the Board of Revisions, where we're able to settle on certain property value tax matters. Those are expiring. We will have an opportunity to, if the county has not made the adjustments to those values, that potentially go back to the Board of Revisions for them. And then we also saw decreases for this year in tuition, full-day kindergarten tuition due to remote days, preschool interest, as the interest rate has been declined based on this investing market that is currently, we're currently in. Other financing sources, we did see a spike this year, which is due to the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. They issued a refund and a dividend, which totaled about $1.2 million. In 2019-20, we've also saw refunds from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. Those are one-time dollars and can't be relied on every year. That's why they're not in the forecast in the out years. Expenses, where does our money go? Of our $75.5 million in general fund operating dollars, 80% goes to salaries and benefits. Then the remaining is, then 11% is purchase services, and then the remaining 9% is split between materials, supplies, equipment, and capital and other objects. Salaries, as mentioned earlier, are forecasted based on the current contracts that are currently negotiated, and with the increases that are built into the negotiated agreements. Benefits were based on, a portion of them are increasing based on the percentage of salaries, and then others based on the healthcare premiums. For 21 to 22, a 1.37% increase, in the out years, an 8% increase. Purchase services. Purchase services are primarily made up of contracted services for nurses, occupational therapists, behavioral services, technology services, outside transportation, building services, insurance, legal, utilities, and other tuition. 2020 we saw a slight decline due to remote days. 21 we saw a slight increase due to the tuition into the charter schools. And then in 2020, from 21 to 22, a slight increase, which is, again, as mentioned, still anticipating an increase to outside tuition, which is the biggest amount of the purchase service amount, but more, not the same jump that we saw this year, but more of a 10% increase to community schools, which has been the historical average. Supplies and materials, this fluctuates from year to year based on actual usage. In 2020, there was a drop because of from being closed those 3 months of the school year. 21, we saw a spike, and then 2022, it kind of restores the budget back to the normal amounts. And this makes up about $2.3 million of the total $75 million expenses. Capital outlay for this year is about $1.1 million, and it's mainly the one-to-one Chromebooks for the district's initiative to technology. General fund debt has been consistent from the out years. We are seeing in 2025 a debt payment come off, and in 2018 there was a debt issue that came off as well. Other objects remaining consistent. The increase from 20 to 21 is due to the other levy coming on with county auditor fees, which is tied to a percentage of collections of 1%. Transfers and advances, it makes up other sources. We are going to see a spike this year due to increased transfers for food service and athletics, and the remaining transfers are made up of our district's termination fund, where we pay severance for outgoing employees, food service, school supplies, and the turf reimbursement. And to wrap it up, to bring the general fund together, so the current year is in yellow. We began the year with $41.7 million. Our total revenues, 85.3 projected. Total expenditures, 75.5, ending the year with a 9.8 surplus. Next year, with the assumptions that we discussed, revenues will go slightly down based on a couple of the tax issues, and then as coupled with expenditures increasing by about 4%, it will bring the surplus. It'll bring the surplus to about 2.6, and then if the levies aren't renewed, you can see how it impacts the forecast. So the first year that if the levy is not renewed in 2023, we'll be deficit spending by 1.1, and then 2024, 6.6, and then 2025 will be the one levy coming off and half of the other levies starting to come off. So you can see there how our levies are impacted. If the levies are renewed, this would be the outcome of our forecast, so we'd be sustainable for the 5 years of the forecast. So with that, that concludes the presentation. I'll turn it over to the board for any questions, but also bring the screen back up and we can take the seats for any questions. Thanks, Dave. Did you want to take the page so we don't forget it? Okay.
Did anyone have any questions for George about the 5-year forecast?
George, I just noticed under supplies and materials, from 2019 to 21, it's kind of a big jump, and then we stay consistent with that 22, 23, 24, 25. What is the jump there? You may have touched on it and I missed it.
From 2019 to 21?
Yes.
So in 19, there was a decrease. From 19 to 20, there was a decrease due to COVID with the school closure, and then increasing to 21 back as we resume normal operations. But also, our textbook budget is in materials and supplies, and it's about $500,000. So it depends, annually depends based on any adoptions for the textbook. Some years it could be more, some years it could be less. And then same thing with whether people will spend their entire supplies budget or not.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that's our normal budgeted amount. Yeah, so if it fluctuates, so we could see a savings if it's not spent 100%. So the out years is tied to the budget. So the out years of the forecast is more of, this is our budgeted forecast. I have been working on the departments to bring it more consistent to what we spend, but with textbooks, within the material supplies, textbooks is one of the biggest items in there, and the adoptions vary annually.
Any other questions? So I'm going to take an example of the city, and at all of their city council meetings, the finance director, Joe Dubovec, and the legal director, Neil Jamieson, they always state that all monies that are required have been accounted for, and they also state that everything in the legislation is proper and in its legal form. So for the public's sake and for our own integrity, the 5-year forecast is extremely important. It can get very dull, it can get very caught in the weeds, but if we don't do this well, this is our tool to make sure that the district is viable today and viable for many years to come. So I'm going to ask George Anagnostou once again, is the 5-year forecast, does it have integrity? Is it accurate to the best of your ability? And does it properly reflect the next 5 years financially for the district?
Based on the information that I currently know now, yes. However, with anything else, it's based on assumptions, and assumptions are subject to change based on actual events.
And that's why the assumptions are such a lengthy part of the 5-year forecast.
But to your point, Mr. McDowell, it is based on everything I know now. To the best of my knowledge, I tried to incorporate everything to be as accurate as possible.
And we would expect nothing less, but it's important that the public knows that that we are serious about this 5-year forecast. One of the intentions I always have with a 5-year forecast is it's a guide, and you want to kind of be conservative on your revenue. You don't want to overinflate it or underinflate it, and you also want to be as accurate as you can with your expenses so that ultimately there are no surprises financially. Thank you, George.
Yep. So if there's no other questions for the forecast, moving on to item B, which is the financial report for the month ending March 31st, 2021, which can be found in Exhibit B. Item C is the financial report for the month ending April 30th, 2021, which can be found in Exhibit C. Item D is new funds for 2021. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the following new fund be approved for fiscal year 21. Fund 499-9221, which is the safety grant. Grant approvals. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the following grants be approved for fiscal year 21. The safety grant, which was awarded by the Attorney General's office for $27,734.83. A Strongsville Education High School Algebra Chromebook grant for $2,600. And I also have an addendum, as there have been for the past couple of days additional Strongsville Education Foundation grants that I wanted to include in this agenda rather than waiting until June. That way our teaching staff can start utilizing those grants before they're gone for the year. And it is a high school algebra flexible seating grant for $2,600, middle school orchestra grant for $2,500, which will be used for electric guitars, and middle school 8th grade math teacher Chromebooks for $2,600. Item F, the amended appropriations for fiscal year 21, be resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the amended appropriations for fiscal year 21 be approved as in Exhibit B. The items listed for change are listed within the exhibit. Item G, medical and prescription insurance. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the medical and prescription premiums of Medical Mutual be approved as presented in the exhibit, an increase of 1.37% effective July 1st, 2021. Item H, House Bill 9, Ohio Public Records Training Certification. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the Board of Education accepts the certified hours for House Bill 9, Ohio Public Records Training. This training is in compliance with all Ohio Public Records statutes of the Board of Education requirement that the treasurer, George K. Anagnostou, be designated on behalf of the Board of Education for public records training. This training was held virtually on Friday, August 16th, and presented by the Office of Dave Yost, Ohio Attorney General. And what that is as a public official every 4 years, you need to have public records training at the organizational meeting. You designate the treasurer on your behalf to cover this compliance piece for you. So this acknowledges that I did this on your behalf. And the last item for your consideration, which falls under student services, but it's under my agenda due to conflict, for North Coast Therapy Associates, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the Board of Education enters into agreement with North Coast Therapy Association to provide occupational and physical therapy services for school age and preschool students with disabilities for school year 2021-22 school year as shown in the exhibit F. And with that concludes my report.
Any other questions for George? Our compliments to you. I know the 5-year forecast is a lot of work. I know you, this 5-year forecast, you had one arm behind your back, and I'm sure everyone's happy and excited to have Nick on board, and I think you're probably the most happy and most excited.
Yeah, I'm excited for him to start. I think it's June 1st, Tuesday he'll be in. And as Cameron touched earlier, excited for his what he showed during the interview process and the rounds that he came up as, his leadership and his drive and determination. So we had about 40 people apply, selected 13 to interview. However, we only interviewed 9, and of those 9, Nick really stood out in both rounds. So excited to have Nick on board and for him to get in and start going.
I will say I think it's a matter of pride that Strongsville has a reputation for being a great place to learn and train, not just for the students, but for the employees, for the professionals. And you've done a great job of allowing a number of assistant treasurers learn and train and then go on to become full treasurers in other districts. So they're planting their seeds in Strongsville. I would suggest the same is in order for Nick, but perhaps you could do it more slowly.
That's the hope. Try and keep them as long as they can, but sometimes they're ready to move on.
Thanks, George. Superintendent's report. Dr. Ryba.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. The first item, discussion item tonight is the extracurricular study. So if you remember last meeting, we presented, the original summation of the study of elementary extracurriculars, athletic supplemental contracts, and then non-athletic opportunities at the middle school and high school. So today we're only going to loop back on the elementary extracurricular activities. We'll bring the other 2 back at a future meeting. But just to kind of recap, we presented the opportunities at each of the building levels. Each of the building levels was given the discretion to have 3 extracurricular opportunities. Historically, there was a student council, and then they were able to pick 2 more. Based on that preliminary list, the board asked for additional feedback, such as can students travel to other buildings? What are the enrollment caps for each of the experiences? How was input received to determine these recommendations? What grade levels are applicable? And that do we still want, we know we've said we've had historically student council. Do we still want student council at every building? So you've got a lot of papers in front of you, but you've got one that says extracurricular opportunity study. So that is the updated charts based on the review. So we met with all of the elementary principals, went through the questions that were presented by the board. So, some of the stuff was in some of the sheets. We just put it in a different way, so all the questions were answered. So you can see here's the grade levels, here's the enrollment limits for each of the clubs, the frequency of the meeting times. Open to others, where I put no, that means that that really is specific to that school. So if you look at the Best Buddies program, that's about building partnerships between older kids and younger kids at that school. The school newspaper is about writing articles about what's happening at that school. Student council was no, because student council is about giving back and leadership with that school, and every school has it. Where you see possibly, that means that's a topic that could be open to anybody. Possibly means, hey, if parents want to drive back and forth and get the kids there, possibly that could work. If we have the opportunity for transportation, possibly that could work. And if there's room within the enrollment, possibly that could work. So nobody's saying, hey, Kinsner Elementary School, we've got book club and choir. So if you're at Chapman and you don't have a book club and you don't have a choir and you want to go participate in Kinsner, you can do that, possibly, if you have transportation there or we can provide it, as well as, there's not a capacity limit that's already been met by the building that's hosting that supplemental. In terms of the feedback that was received, predominantly the first round, it was staff surveys. What is your interest? At the elementary level, supplementals are really built on what are the interests of the staff and what is the ability for staff to lead and oversee these supplementals. You typically don't have outside community members or parents coming in to run these supplementals. It's staff, teachers or staff that are running these. So it's a combination of what do we want for our students and what are interests of our students, as well as what do we have staff and their skills and their capabilities to lead these experiences. So a lot of it was done by just staff input, survey ideas being shared, people that were willing to say, hey, if we have this club, I'd be interested in stepping up and overseeing it. Based on the feedback, I asked them to go back and talk to PTA, talk to parents, talk to students, and so you could see in there what they did and what the feedback they received from the families that were there. And then finally, it's on all of these, but we did have that conversation. All of them felt that student council was an important part of what they did. Mr. Roberts made mention of, hey, let's look at some continuity between what we're doing from the elementary, middle school to high school. That's one of those areas that can have that continuity and growth there. So I believe I've answered all of the questions that were asked for additional feedback. I would say one of the guidance pieces that the elementary principals did bring up to me is this it or is this phase one? Some of them have even written like, hey, if we remember originally there was 5 before the reduction happened, we brought back 1, and now we've kind of have a middle ground of having 3. So, there are other ideas that are out there, but they prioritized based on capacity, interest, staff that could do it, expand, hitting some needs of the building, hitting the most kids that they possibly can. But there are some additional interests if at some time the board says, hey, let's add a 4th, let's add a 5th, like we used to have, whatever it may be. So at this time, Mr. Mickle, I'm going to pause and turn it over to you and the board for any additional guidance, feedback, direction on elementary extracurriculars.
Questions? Dr. Riber, the enrollment limits, how did those come about? Or is it more based on just ratios, or like for book club, for example, it says 24 students?
Yeah, so what are the enrollment limits and where did those come from? Those were just, what are manageable amounts? So when you take a look at like 3 students per class for the school newspaper, and you take a look at Chapman, a lot of those sections are, 3 sections. So if we're doing K to 5 times 3, so that's a lot of kids. So let's 3 times 18, so like 60 some kids that 54, whatever it is that could be in it. So as part of it's manageable. The Kinsner Book Club, they've done that for a handful of years. That's been a volunteer club that the media assistant has done. So some of it is about what is manageable to have meaningful discussions, meaningful work, that's going to provide a benefit and not have frustration of, hey, I want to be in a book club and talk about the book, but there's 60 of us here and we really can't have a conversation. Choir, in terms of just historically, that kind of gives a normal number. Choirs are always large, come one, come all. But so those were the, art club is just simply that's going to be in a classroom. That's the opportunity, that's the seats we have, that's the opportunities we have to facilitate that. So that kind of gives an overview of what is manageable in terms of, if you take a look at student council and 2 per class, again, we've all been a part of groups. We want to get as many kids in a leadership experience as possible, but there is that tipping point between too many, and you're not going to get anything done when the group is too large. So that's some of the context.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions, but I have some comments. I just want to draw attention to a couple of things here that concern me. I'm looking at Whitney and Sarar particularly. They have 0 opportunities for kids K to 1 at Whitney, 0 opportunities for K to 2 at Sarar. And if you continue on, it improves a little bit. Muraski has 1 opportunity K to 2. Kinsner, 1 opportunity K to 2, and Chapman, 2 opportunities K to 2. So this worries me, that some of the schools have opportunities for our younger students, some of them have none. Similarly, you look at Kinsner or Muraski or Sarar, if you take student council out of the mix, they're entirely arts focused. Whitney has 1 art, 1 STEM, and so on. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it worries me that the opportunities are not in different areas for different ages at different buildings. I also have concerns about the limits at some buildings and not limits at others.
Michelle, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you say that again? The echo is...
Yeah, I know, it's tough up here. I have concerns about enrollment limits. some enrollment limits.
Thank you.
Yep. You know, Chapman, all of them have enrollment limits, and then there are others that don't, and some of them are high, some of them are super low. So how many students are we able to reach at each building varies quite dramatically. So one of the things, and I mentioned some of this to Cameron before, and I'm interested in, and I'm curious to see what fellow board members think. I'm interested in revisiting the study that Cameron did with, how many years ago? A couple years ago?
It was before the levy, so probably about 2.5, 3 years ago.
You did it with some stakeholders?
Yeah, it was a community advisory committee, so it was all parents and Dan and I.
So, in my understanding, what came out of that committee was that they recommended 4 supplementals for each building that were the same.
Correct.
And then the 5th one was optional. So my suggestion at this point, since I know from 3 to 5 is a huge leap and we don't want to make it, could we consider doing the 4? Did we have 4 outlined specifically?
Yeah, we had 4 outlined. Yeah.
Okay. Can we consider those 4 that were carefully considered by our community members, by our stakeholders, by our parents, and do those 4 now, and then look at the principal's future plans and add the 5th one somewhere down the line? Because I think that may address a whole host of the concerns that I have here.
I'm comfortable with thinking about it. I don't want to say I'm caught off guard, but I haven't thought about it. So, you know, I would want to see the increased cost to go to 3 to 5 or 3 to 4, and then get a flavor for what it would get us as far as Cameron's data is concerned. But I'm happy to consider it.
And Michelle, are you suggesting that 3 of those be across the board the same at the schools and 1 be different, or that they could all be different?
I would be open to suggestions there, but I was just going off the original plan, which was 4 and 1.
Right.
If we started with the 4 now and added the 1 different one later, but I think I could see doing 3 and 1 also. So that's a good suggestion.
Because that was one of my concerns, the differences at the schools, you know, and somebody at Kinsner might want to be in book club and not have that opportunity.
The other thing that a community member suggested to me, and I thought was an interesting idea, only one, I think, Chapman has the school newspaper. And the idea was, what if we did a joint elementary newspaper? Where students from each building, especially with the way we have Zoom available to us now, and we could collaborate and the kids could see what's going on in different buildings. That may be something to talk about too, as we're having this expansion conversation.
And if we're talking about expansion, intramurals might be something to look at. You know, some of the kids, the only chance they have to move is during gym class twice a week. So if we had like an intramural opportunity for them to learn more about sports.
So I don't want to cut off. Anybody have any other thoughts before I just get a little more clarity?
The other thought I had is I did not think about, when we had this discussion, it was always in the vein of growing opportunities. I didn't think about, hey, this is already being done, we're now going to turn it into a supplemental. And I think you said book club is already being done. So if you could just gather the data and provide it to us on these suggestions from the individual schools, which ones are already in existence? Because for me, it just colors how I'm looking at it versus it's already occurring and we're now going to deal with it differently versus these are brand new opportunities for students. And I had not thought about that before, so I don't know if that one is representative or an outlier, so I'd like to see that data. And then as far as the, I will just share my opinion is the individual schools, I'm comfortable that they are closer to their personality and what their students and teachers are interested in. The thing that I'm interested in is participation. So whether one school has one thing and another school has another, I would just want to say, can we track how many kids are actually participating? And that would be just something that we could look at on an annual basis. And, you know, I do think, you know, nothing is I don't want anything to be an extreme, but the number of kids that are participating, to me, the more kids that are participating in extracurricular activities, the better. So if we can, I think it would be useful to us to measure that on an annual basis and just look at it, not necessarily set goals or anything. This is the first year, let's see what happens, and then adjust. And Cameron and I were discussing it. These are not in stone. This could be looked at as a first year effort, and just like anything else, things wax and wane, and you know, one year or a number of years it could be book club, and then different interests come forward and the individual schools can pivot and change as they go forward. But I would like to understand how many of these extracurriculars are already occurring.
I can share that information with you. I just want to kind of put an asterisk on that, though. I would hope the board would consider, just because they are occurring does not mean that they could not be a paid opportunity, because I think it would be difficult to say, hey, you've been doing choir out of the goodness of your heart for all of these years, or book club, and just because you volunteered your time for 10 years, we're not going to consider a supplemental contract for that. And so I think we've got to balance that. So I will definitely give.
That's not my goal, or
yeah.
I think we're in agreement on that. I
Okay.
just want to understand what it was, because I was thinking of these as all additional.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah, I could provide that information of what is currently occurring and what is new. The other part that I think I need a little more guidance on is so the recommendation from the community committee was they created 4 categories. So the 4 categories that they created were service learning, the arts, this is all one, athletics, health, and or fitness, and then STEM. So their direction was elementary principals, and then the 5th one was you pick, right? You do whatever you want that meets the need of the building. So what they said is, as a committee, we think that those 4 areas are important areas to cover at all elementary buildings. And the direction, I'm looking at Dan because he was there with me, the direction was then, hey, talk to the elementary principals and see underneath each of those categories, they wanted it consistent, and what the 5 elementary principals could agree to underneath those categories. Dan's nodding his head, so I'm on the right track. So under service learning, they stuck with student council. Under the arts, they had selected choir. Under the athletic health and fitness, they selected intramurals. And under STEM, they selected a makerspace club. So the part where, not that you have to give me a decision now, but I want you to think about is, do you want to, those were different principals at the time. You know, so we've got new principals that made that decision. So one decision would be, hey, Cameron, go back and talk to the principals and see if we like these 4 overarching categories, what do we like under those? If you still want consistency across all buildings, you know, experiences, you know, here's the span, here's the scope, here's the enrollment, all of that stuff can be consistent. If you're more of, hey, we're okay with the larger umbrella topics and buildings, find what works for you. So, you know, I've got under arts, I got an art club at one building, I got choir at another building. So that's where I need a little guidance is, how scripted are you wanting to be? Is it, here's the categories, fill what works underneath those categories? With some of those ideas, Michelle, that you talked about, is make sure we have a scope for all kids, you know, K to 5. Take a look at enrollment limits and see if we can expand it as much as possible. I think that would address naturally your concern of, I'm only art focused, or I'm only, you know, service focused, whatever it may be. So any thoughts or guidance for the board, from the board?
Just my immediate response
Yeah.
is, I trust that this plan was well thought out, and I can see that. And I think a good combination of what we're talking about here is take the categories but make them your own. I like the 4 categories. I think it covers all the things that we were talking about. But again, if there's a book club one place and the choir the other place, that's cool with me, because I think a lot of these fall, there'll just be some minor tweaks. That works for me, but there are 5 of us.
I think that having the general category is good to go with, and to your point, Richard, principals know that community and that the family is there, what they want, so I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm fine with going to 4, personally. I mean, obviously, one's already going to be student council, it seems like, across the board, so really just adding the other 3. If it makes sense financially, since we're already at, I think we already thought about doing 3, so adding that 4th one could be a little bit more money. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
I wonder about the numbers, like Rich had mentioned too. Like, I guess once we get there, but like you have said, some are after school, some will be before school, or then different grades. I don't know if there's no limit on the students being involved in all of those. So will one student decide to go through all of them, or maybe students will pick one and some pick none, because students do have other obligations, after school activities. The older students for sure have different things, dance, basketball, or different activities therein. So I do wonder how we'll fill these different slots.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, Sherry. And I think, as Richard said, that's something we need to track. We've got a system, we've got a schedule, and let's take a look at what is the student participation from the first of the year to the end of the year. If we're doing choir, are we starting with 50 kids and ending with 50 kids? Intramurals, typical intramurals at the elementary level years ago was, we're going to do 4 weeks of basketball, then we're going to do 4 weeks of floor hockey, then we're going to do 4 weeks. Let's be able to look at that and say, okay, we only got 10 kids for this event, or whatever club it would be is not getting the enrollment. Let's be able to then have that discussion and say, that one's not coming back for next year. Let's find a different one that's going to attract more students, because that's the ultimate vision, right? How can we give kids the greatest amount of opportunities outside of school to discover their interests, and if it's not translating and we're not getting student interest, then that's a clear sign that we need to do something else. I would say, just so you have the information as a reminder, I'm not counting the student council because that's already there. I could do that calculation if you'd want. So right now, if we go the original increase to adding the 2 additional supplementals at each building was about $28,000. If we add the 4th one, that takes it up to $42,000. If we include all supplementals, if we do 4 at every building, that total is $56,000.
What did you say?
Right, so that would include student council.
56,000 includes, I'm sorry, what?
The 56,000 would be 4 supplementals at all 5 elementary buildings, and that's inclusive of student council. That's just saying truly, not what is additional, but what are we paying total. So the total cost, if we do 4, would be 56,000. If you look at what's the true addition to the budget? The true addition to the budget is 42,000.
I'm actually going to take a step back from not because of the financial piece, but I want to discuss this part. From an athletic standpoint, I feel like there's so many offerings of different athletics that can happen, whether it be soccer, baseball, basketball, what have you, within the community. I'm afraid that the participation at the individual school is going to be extremely low. And does it make sense to put that money towards that, or is it if we have 4, give the buildings the ability to say, hey, we don't need an intramural one, but we'll do 2 arts, or we'll do 2 STEM, or whatever it may be. I guess pose that question to you guys, because I have a hard time believing that the elemental.
Speaking plainly, I think there's enough sport opportunity in the city.
Yeah.
That I don't see it as something, intramurals, I don't see it as a crying thing that needs to be fixed. I would be comfortable saying we're good with that.
But
And I'm also,
demographic that might not have the opportunity to do those extracurriculars, you know, because they are all paid activities. When my children went through Maraski, our gym teacher did the intramurals, and it was always packed.
I can see both sides of it too, because as a parent, I have my kids in other sports, but if I had a chance to like let them stay later after school and not do additional transport and all of that, I would do it. So I mean, I can see both sides of that one.
I think there's options for, first of all, we have to look at, there's a social aspect to this too, right? So there's this, you know, yes, I can go and play rec ball or for whatever it is, but the idea that I can do this with the kids I go to school with and my friends and have some fun outside of school, I think that's a piece of it too. But I think as Seth or Richard were alluding to, there are the options to say that based on the context of the activity, that these are half-year supplementals, right? So to be able to say, you know, maybe we stick with the 3, but say, here's one, you know, we're going to do half a year of health and fitness, we're going to do half a year of makerspace or a STEM-based activity. Those are, what I would suggest is, I think I've got the parameters of the umbrellas to work under. I can kind of talk to the principals and come back and get their feedback of, do we feel we have somebody that can fulfill these opportunities under each of the supplementals? Do we feel that, like, I mean, because if we're going to do this, you look at all of these, it's at least twice a month, right? At least twice a month we're going to get together. You know, is there enough meat on that supplemental to have something every other week for the entire year? So I think we've got options and we can be creative. So if that's okay with the board.
Why don't we bring it back in November to give you direction, and then June. I thought, if I slid it in. June.
Yes.
Why don't we target June to be done with all of our questions and research so that you can have direction and move on?
All right. Anything else on extracurriculars? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you said every other week, but, okay, all right. I didn't look at the frequency. Okay, because I was thinking these were all weekly activities. So intramurals, what would that be?
It depends on, you know, who organizes it. And so we would do like we've done with everything else. What's the proposal? What's the frequency? You know, again, intramurals in the past was kind of like book club. We're going to meet once a week at this morning for this for, you know, a 6-week period, and then we're going to move to the next sport for a 6-week period. So it just depends, but we'll get that all fleshed out when we come back in June. All right, so the second thing on the discussion for tonight is facial coverings. So as I've shared in my parent update and with the board, we are all aware that as of June 2nd, as of right now, all state health orders will be removed. So the question becomes, what are we doing with some of our restrictions and policies after that point? So just bear with me. I know you are well aware of this, but just to share. The governor came out and said that all school districts should follow their current COVID restrictions through the end of the school year. I have confirmed that, you know, since our school year ends on May 28th, that officially ends our responsibility to follow COVID restrictions as of May 28th. And then we still follow them, obviously, until June 2nd. So, you know, it doesn't go into summer programming. It doesn't go into summer athletics. The governor's request, we all follow them, will be adhered to. Then we come back, that'll be Friday, May 28th. I believe we come back on June 1st. That's a Tuesday. And no kids are here. These are just adults. And summer programming starts that week, does it?
The 7th, June 7th.
Okay, so we got a week buffer before the summer programming starts. So on June 2nd, if everything continues, all of the health orders in the state of Ohio will be rescinded. Now, one of the things that, you know, those that advise us on these topics have shared is The governor and state can remove all health orders, but if they do not remove the state of emergency, then schools can still be a carve-out. So the governor can rescind all health orders, but still say, but schools still have to follow all the same restrictions. So we'll see what happens on June 2nd. If everything is removed, the only thing he's talked about so far, as I remember, is like nursing homes. Healthcare, nursing homes, they're not going to follow the rescission of the health orders. But let's say everything is removed, all school orders are removed as well, then the restrictions become the business of the board and the school district. So the only COVID-related restriction that is currently written in policy is our facial covering procedures and requirements and procedures for face covering. So the board member, I've shared this with you in emails. You've got both copies. You've got one that's at the top, it'll say policy manual. That's the board policy. You've got another one at the top that says administrative guideline manual. That's the administrative guideline. So just for clarity, the board does not need to change the policy because the policy is all mays and could and if you want to type of language. So there's nothing directing. As an example, it says, the superintendent, may announce and enlist that all people wear facial coverings. So the policy is there as a reference, but there's nothing that I see that needs to be changed or the board would vote on. Now, the administrative guidelines are the partner to the board policy, and they say, what is the district actually going to do on a day-to-day basis? The board does not vote on this. This is something that administratively we complete and upload to our system, but we need board guidance, right? So last time we talked in the summer about facial coverings, the board said, we want facial coverings to be worn at all times on district property. I went through and took the board feedback and consensus and filled out this administrative guideline, which basically says in summary, anytime you're waiting to come to school, you're on a bus, you're at school, you're at a school-sponsored event, you're going to use a facial cover. You're going to wear a facial covering. If we do nothing by June 2nd, this are still the rules that we have to follow, is that even with all the health orders gone and the school orders gone, facial coverings will need to be required. So what I'm asking for the board to start discussions tonight, if you have consensus to give me direction, is what do you want to be the stance of the district on June 2nd and thereafter? That will give me the direction I need to update the administrative guideline, and that can be enacted, updated, kept the same, changed, whatever it needs to be for June 2nd and moving forward. So Mr. Mickle, I'll turn it over to you to however you want to proceed with the discussion.
Who would like to start the discussion?
If the state rescinds everything, including schools, as I understand it, then it's up to us if we want to continue to have that mandate on school property. Okay. Is in my thought, in my opinion, there's so many people that have already been vaccinated, taken that step. There's been such a low increase in positivity rates and so forth, and as far as in transferring within the school because everybody's done such a great job of that. I think at that point we should leave it up to the individual if they feel comfortable wearing or not wearing a mask, which obviously would require us to then say there is no mask policy, but it's up to you if you'd like to wear one. So that's my thought on that.
I have a question, and I don't know if there's an answer to this. I read the guidelines, and I didn't notice anything, but do you know when the quarantine order portion of that, is that also gone on June 2nd? Because I see these as directly related, and I'm really flexible if the quarantine also goes away, but if we're going to keep quarantining kids, I'm a little more hesitant.
Now, Jenny, I know I didn't get a chance to read it yet, but the Board of Health sent an update on quarantines. Did you have a chance to look at that yet?
I believe that if you are vaccinated, you do not have to quarantine. I know that for sure. Beyond that, I'd have to look it up.
I think one of the things we'll look and get you, because they just sent something out, but that's the Cuyahoga County Board of Health giving suggestions and guidance, which is different than a state health order. So, I think not to take it off topic of the facial coverings, but I think it relates, is if the governor or the state of Ohio is not mandating COVID-related restrictions, are there areas where the board or the district feels that we should implement our own? I think that, so again, if there's no restrictions, you found it? Okay.
Yeah. So it talks about unvaccinated students and staff who were possibly exposed while in the setting may continue to attend in-person school if the following conditions are met. So they list a few things. That we have documented prevention policies, including mask wearing and social distancing, so that's a piece of it. It occurred within the classroom environment or while on the bus. The person with COVID-19, so it's very similar to what we're currently doing. If everybody was wearing a mask, social distancing, and symptom-free. So that's currently what we have in place.
Traditionally, the Cuyahoga County Board of Health has been more conservative than what the state orders have been. But we can dig into that and see if anybody knows anything right now in terms of, if all restrictions are gone, would there be any quarantining requirements as well?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Cameron, the way I also understand this is if there is a massive increase or something like as the summer goes along, everything's great, but all of a sudden we start to see something go up again, we would have the ability to change that policy again going into next school year as it stands right now, correct?
Correct. So we've got two options. We can have a meeting. You guys the board can give me the direction to say, hey, Cameron, put it back to the way it was. Or we have the ability, the policy gives me the authority in discussion with the board just to announce and say, effective on this date, this classroom is all going to wear masks for the next 2 weeks. This building is going to all wear masks. The district is going to all wear masks. So you're not giving up that flexibility. You will always still have the option without having a meeting. I would equate it to when we had spikes in COVID, we made the decision internally to say this classroom is now going to go in quarantine for the next 7 days. We have the ability to say, hey, we're starting to see some spread, and be strategic and say this classroom is going to wear their masks for the next 10 days. We can do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I think is most pressing is the summer school elementary. And to that point, do we have plans in place currently for social distancing, or are we not doing that? And then also, do we have have we hired our staffing for the summer already? Because one of my concerns is if we remove the mask policy, when the parents signed up, there was still a mask policy, and that was assumed. If we no longer have one, I can't imagine it's going to be a huge number, but there will be some parents that pull out. Could potentially change our staffing needs, and we could potentially have staff we don't need and are paying anyway. So that financially, I'm looking at that, and also in terms of those students may no longer be able to be serviced in a way that they need because they're not comfortable with no masks. So those are the two things that I'm thinking about.
Do you want me to address the first question about the summer learning? So we've been pretty diligent. We sent out surveys this week just confirming registration, so I have to go back, but we've been pretty accommodating, even potentially allowing virtual options for students. I would say that there are some classes of 22. There are some in 4th and 5th grade that are on the bubble, and we're still considering, do we separate those or not? So looking at classrooms. So right now we're just trying to figure out the numbers, but I know we have over, I think, 20 classrooms that we're using at Muraski. So we are trying
Jenny,
to be very diligent.
In terms of the numbers, I'm assuming the classroom numbers for summer learning are not over our typical classroom numbers, which means they would socially distance at the same level as they are now. Yeah.
And it sounds to me like staff is still in flux as well.
Pardon me?
Staff is still in flux due to the number of classrooms needed, or have we already hired those folks?
Amy's in the process right now. She's finalizing those numbers, yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to share some of my thought processes and see if it helps us get some consensus. But if we break it apart, if we just start with the mask order and all the other requirements, I do understand the caveat from our lawyers about the emergency order, and that could remain. As I've read and listened to the press conferences and what's come out from the governor has stated that on June 2nd, all those orders will be removed or rescinded, and business, and they specifically said businesses, schools, and other organizations will be empowered to make their own decisions. So I'm going to take him at his word that schools will be empowered to make their own decisions, realizing that there's times he's changed his mind before, and he certainly could change his mind again. But I think it's reasonable that on June 2nd, it's going to be up to us in the school district to make our decisions. And so if I break it down and I start with the adults, I asked and reviewed, and we had a large number of staff and adults who have chosen to be vaccinated and are not just in the process of vaccination, but are well past it and are considered fully vaccinated. You know, the different groups are as high as 88%, 92%. Our lowest one is 43%, and these are just numbers that we can track. They're not 100% accurate if you went and got vaccinated outside of it. But within the adult ranks, not only does everyone have the opportunity to be vaccinated, but a surprising large number of them have chosen. So I think we can say for the adults, whether you wear masks or not can be left to a personal decision. And then think we can go to the high school students, and they have the ability to be vaccinated, and they can, I think it's reasonable to say it will be their decision along with their parents' decision. You're going to have to help me with middle schoolers. I think the 7th and 8th graders are covered. I think some of the 6th graders, there's a gray area as far as age, but it can be a parent-student decision, and there's a vehicle for that makes it reasonable for us to say, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, you can choose to be vaccinated or not. It's the elementary that I think we have a consideration for because we don't have a vaccine. And at that point, my opinion is that we can look at the data, and I happen to have it, and within Ohio as a total has a case count of a little over 1 million. Age 0 to 19 is 149,000. Hospitalized is 58,000. Within that age group, it's a little less than 1,500. The unfortunate stat is 7 people from 0 to 19 did die, compared to the almost 20,000 that died. So it is something that I want to make sure we're not just being cavalier about. If I localize it to Cuyahoga, it's 113,000 cases, 13,000 in the age group, a little under 7,000 hospitalized in Cuyahoga, 209 what I call students, 0 to 19, have been hospitalized, and fortunately, there have been no death cases of what I call children, 0 to 19, in Cuyahoga County, although there have been over 2,000 adults that have died because of COVID. So I think, for me, it's reasonable to say that if the governor isn't going to make a prescription on facial coverings, I don't see how we as a board make a prescription, and I think we allow parents to determine what their best course of action is and make an informed decision. So for facial coverings, I'm comfortable on June 2nd. It is not a yes, it is not a no, it is parents and students make a decision. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. The caveat, and I think Michelle brought it up, is if you're sick. And I think, I would hope common sense would we don't need the Cuyahoga County Department of Health to tell us that if you're sick, stay home. And that's true whether it's the flu, that's true whether it's COVID, that's true whether it's the common cold. If you're sick, stay home. And if you're not sick, or if you're sick and you show up at school, we're going to send you to the nurse and we're going to send you home. So I think that's a reasonable path forward, and it is the one that I would recommend we do as direction. And like Seth said, we can pivot and adjust. Summer is coming. You know, the numbers came out today. I looked at them. The entire state continues to be in a better place. All the big counties, Cuyahoga, Franklin, et cetera, they're lagging the rest of the state, but they continue to get to a good place. So I think we have a test in the summer, and we can allow parents to make informed, intelligent choices. And then I am positive, I want to be positive that this is going to continue. But if it doesn't, we can pivot and make intelligent decisions when that happens. Does that make sense? Unless
It makes sense.
Unless I hear dissension, I think we should go forward, and we'll want to adjust our administrative guidelines so that on June 2nd, wear a mask if you want to wear a mask, don't. If you don't, we don't have any prescriptions or rules to follow. And I'm comfortable saying you have that direction now, but that's a board decision. And hearing no dissent, you have your direction.
Thank you, and so I'll make that update. As George mentioned in his presentation, and I've shared with you, we need to have a public hearing on the ESSER funds. But it's not just about how we're spending the ESSER funds, it's about how we are going to ensure that we are going to provide in-person learning for all of our students next year. Now, that may sound a little silly because we've been in-person learning predominantly for this school year, but if you look at school districts across the state of Ohio, that has not been the case. And so part of those funds is, as I told George, it's kind of, we are giving you the funding resources, now stay open. And so that's a part of the plan that we'll also present. Here's how we're planning to use the ESSER funds, and here's how we're planning to stay open and keep our kids and staff just as safe and healthy as we did this year. So that will be a part of our June 3rd presentation, and we'll get into the details of all the other precautions and safety protocols we'll put in place. All right. Well, it's not even 10 o'clock yet, and we're ready to move on to the rest of the agenda. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Breckner for our business services update for the month. Steve?
Good evening, everyone. A couple of items on this section of business services. The first one is, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the operations manager be authorized to renew the Ohio School Board Association Public Official Bond Program for George K. Anagnostou, treasurer. Bonded amount is $100,000 for the period of August 1st, 2021 through July 31st, 2024. Funding to be from the general fund. The next item is the high school and middle school turf fields. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. The first item. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education accepts the proposal of Guaranteed Trust Life Insurance Company through Love Insurance Company as student insurance program for the Strongsville City Schools for the 2021-2022 school year. Be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the following be adopted. All students participating in interscholastic and intramural activities shall either purchase the appropriate insurance coverage or present a waiver signed by the parent or guardian. Such waiver shall release in all authority or in charge from any liability resulting from medical claims. And that's Exhibit G.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Hearing none. George, take the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, and the motion carries. Back to you, Steve, for another one.
Yes, I previewed number 2 before, so I shall not do that again. The third item Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the operations manager be authorized to enter into a 5-year agreement, spring 2021 through fall of 2026, with Vasco Sports Contractors for the high school and middle school turf fields, as specified in the exhibit, for a total of $51,000, funding to be from the facility fund, and that's Exhibit H.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? When we solicited the donations for the turf field, we did talk quite a bit about our commitment to the public to maintain these fields as an asset for the community. We don't have to mow them, but we do have to sow them. And this will, I worked really long and hard on that one. And
I think somebody needs to Google that.
And this is our commitment to make sure we have our needle and thread ready for the turf. Any other discussion? Hearing no other groans, Mr. Anagnostou.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Solis?
Yes.
Mr. Micko?
Yes, and the motion carries.
The final item under this section tonight is the gifts that were given to the district. Authors John E. and Danita Thomas donated the following books with an estimated total value of $59,100 to be used in all Strongsville City Schools media centers and maker spaces. Extra copies to be distributed to Strongsville City Schools students. Those books are as follows: Kids Concoctions Special 10th Anniversary Edition, 560 copies. Kids Concoctions Special 10th Anniversary Edition Kit, 160 kits. Kid Concoctions and Contraptions, 230 copies. Kid Concoctions Weird, Wacky, and Wild Stuff, 1,700 copies. Kids Concoctions in Spanish Volume 1, 130 copies. And Kid Concoctions in Spanish Volume 2, 300 copies.
Steve, do we know John and Danita?
I do not.
Okay. I just wondered, is that, you do? I was thinking, it's a hefty donation. I imagine they're community members?
Yes, they are. They live in Strongsville. They had a store in the mall a while back called Kid Concoctions. The books are very engaging and great for the students.
That's awesome. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Next up is our Director of Curriculum, Aaron Green, with the report for this month. Aaron?
Hi, good evening. Just a couple items for your consideration tonight, maybe 18-ish. Item 1 under curriculum, we have the potential graduates of Strongsville High School for our commencement ceremonies on May 30th, 2021. Final approval of these graduates, though, is contingent upon successful completion of all the requirements for graduation, and those names can be found in Exhibit I. Item 2 is our grades 3 through 5 science textbook adoption, as shown in Exhibit J. These materials would be for our 3rd through 5th grade science. It's an updated copyright from what we currently use. Item 3 and item 4 are 21-22 school fees lists. Item 3 is our elementary student fees for the 21-22 school year. That's Exhibit K. Item 4 would be our secondary fees, and that's Exhibit L. Item 5, a student-teacher affiliation agreement between Strongsville City Schools and Bowling Green State University, shown in Exhibit M. Item 6 is Alexia Core 5 reading software program for our K through 8 students. Item 7, through our literacy grant, are decodable readers that we'll use in grades K through 2, at a cost of $58,729, and again, that will expire the literacy grant that we have had for the last few years. Item 8 is My World Interactive Social Studies supplement, 2-year subscription, consumable editions for grades 3 through 5. We have items 9 through 13 are our handbooks for the 21-22 school year, with item 9 being preschool handbook, 10 being the elementary, 11 is the middle school, 12 high school, and item 13 is our athletic handbook. Items 14, 15, and 16 are overnight or out-of-state trips. So item 14 is for our high school boys and girls cross-country team to attend an overnight camp in August at Lakeside Historic Village in Lakeside, Ohio. Item 15 is an out-of-state trip for the high school boys varsity soccer team to travel to Traverse City, Michigan, September 3rd through 5th of 21. 16 is an out-of-state trip for the high school girls soccer team to travel to Owen Mills, Maryland for a soccer competition in October. Item 17 is a speech-language pathology internship for a student that will, a student teacher placed at Sarar Elementary, and she is a student at Bowling Green University. And lastly, item 18, we have 3 student teacher placements from Baldwin Wallace University. One will be placed at, actually all 3 will be placed at the high school and in just obviously different classrooms. Any questions I can answer tonight on those curricular items?
Aaron, can you share about the My World Interactive Social Studies, just, I guess, kind of general, from I guess, what it covers and kind of the position it's coming from?
Sure. So it's what our students are going to use as their textbook. It's a very heavy reading focus, though. So it is the Ohio standards. One of the few publishers that do align to Ohio standards in social studies. So it's like a student work text, if you will. Again, it's reading content, however, the topics are based on social studies. Does that help?
I think I'd like to highlight their consumables, which means their workbooks. It means it's not just a textbook that you read. It's a workbook that you fill out, and I'm assuming, I remember in my day, you pulled the pages out and turned them in for homework. I'm assuming you still do that to some degree.
One of the things that's a challenge with science and social studies is the state of Ohio has their own unique standards, which makes it difficult to get materials because if you take a look at English language arts and mathematics, they're very similar nationally. So that's why we have to use these creative ways and kind of these supplementary resources to get things that are specific to Ohio. So it's still third grade, whatever the topics are in third grade, these are going to be a consolidated resource for the kids and teachers to have to help address those standards.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Aaron.
And then I was going to highlight that we do take our, we try to take everything that needs to be taken seriously. But our elementary student fees, we were able to look at them and make sure that they're needed and make sure that we don't have items on there that we just keep on getting because we got them last year. We take a look at all of them and make sure that the teachers are going to use them and that they're needed and a valuable part of the education. And Cameron sent me the numbers and I'm blanking on it, but we did reduce student fees. Drum roll, please. I only have so much shtick worked out for each meeting.
Please, no. So on average, in each grade level, K to 5, the student fees will be reduced by about $20 per grade level. So, that's a great...
Times the entire district, that's real money.
Yep. Yeah.
So, thank you, Aaron.
Next up, we have our Director of Student Services, Andy Trujillo, with his update for the month. Andy?
Good evening, members of the board. I only have one item for your consideration this evening, and that is to enter into an agreement with Solutions Behavioral Consulting for next school year. They help support our students, teachers, and staff in the area of behavioral interventions, and that's Exhibit N.
Any questions for Andy? Thank you, Andy.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Andy. And back to Jenny with our Human Resource Report for the month. Jenny?
So under Human Resources this evening, I have many, many items for your consideration. Under E1, abolishment of a non-certificated staff member. Under E2, we have non-renewal of contracts for our certificated substitutes. This is a normal process that we go through, and then we also send out letters to them if they would like to return the following year. Under E3, appointment of an administrative staff member, appointments for certificated staff members, appointment for a non-certificated staff member, appointments for non-certificated substitutes, appointment for a non-certificated summer school position, appointment for certificated supplemental contract prorated, appointments for non-certificated supplemental contracts prorated, appointments for certificated athletic supplemental contracts, appointments for non-certificated athletic supplemental contracts, appointment for certificated supplemental contract, appointments for certificated supplemental contracts additional time. This is for our counselors and psychologists and transition coordinator. And then appointments for certificated supplemental contracts extended time. I do need to make one change from the floor, and that is Heather Koblenz should be listed as 6 days, and Stacy Petrosini should be listed for 4 days. Those were just flip-flopped. Under E4, changes in hours for non-certificated staff. Under E5, changes in status for certificated full-time equivalents. Changes in status for certificated staff. Under E5, change in status for certificated staff, change in status for non-certificated, and change in status for non-certificated reduced in force. Under E6, contract recommendations for administrative staff. We have our two-year contract recommendations, our 3-year contract recommendations. Continuing under E6, contract recommendations for certificated staff for our continuing contracts. Contract recommendations for certificated for limited contracts are listed as 1-year limited contracts effective for the 21-22 school year. 2-year limited contracts, 3-year limited contracts starting next year. We also have the following contract recommendations for leadership: 2-year contract, 3-year contracts listed, and contract recommendations for our non-certificated staff. Under E7, there is a contract extension for a certificated staff member. Under E8, we have stipends for our local professional development committee members, stipend for our summer curriculum development, and stipend for our summer curriculum development under Title 2A. So these both stipends are for teachers that teachers and members of the pupil services personnel that want to come in over the summer, need to come in over the summer to do some summer work to plan for next year. Under E9, we have medical leaves for certificated staff, medical leave for leadership, medical leaves for non-certificated staff, and under E10, we have unpaid leaves for non-certificated staff. And I have an addendum. So continuing, we have appointments for certificated staff, appointment for a leadership, appointments for non-certificated staff, appointment for a non-certificated substitute. We have appointments for certificated athletic supplemental contracts, appointments for non-certificated athletic supplemental contracts, appointment for our extended school year personnel, and a change in status for certificated full-time equivalents, change in status for our non-certificated staff members, and finally, we have 2 resignations, one from a leadership and one from a non-certificated staff member. And that concludes my report unless you have questions for me.
Hi, brain hiccup. Can you start over again?
Can we play the video or?
Any questions for Jenny? Nice job, and traditionally this is a busy time of year, but it is a especially busy time of year, so thank you.
Welcome.
And next up is our Director of Instructional Technology, Dave Binkley, with his report for the month. Dave?
Good evening. I have 3 items for you tonight. Item number 1 is Power School. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education approves Power School enrollment registration at the annual cost of $17,496. The assessment item bank and Power School Performance Matters assessment at an annual cost of $18,205. For the total cost to be paid by Strongsville City Schools Technology Department for $35,701. And be it further resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education approves Power School Performance Matters Analytics and Special Programs, SECM, and 504 at annual cost not to exceed $28,500 to be paid by the Strongsville City Schools Student Services Department. General fund will be reimbursed with ESSER funds if available. Item number 2 is Southeast Security Cisco phone system support and maintenance. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the agreement between Southeast Security and Strongsville City Schools be approved to provide Cisco phone support, system support. Advanced part replacement software support includes maintenance, minor, and major updates. This is a one-year agreement for the period of June 22nd, 2021 to June 21st, 2022 at a cost of $42,266.65. And then number 3 is BPI Information Systems Fiber Channel Storage Area Network and Server Upgrades. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the agreement between BPI Information Systems and Strongsville City Schools be approved to provide fiber channel storage area network, which is used to run the district servers and server upgrades. Proliant DI 380. The total cost to be paid is $27,570.
Any questions for Dave? And that concludes my report.
Dave, if you could make sure to have Jim send pictures of the servers.
sure
We
he
would
could
all
send
be
you
very
lots of
excited
pictures of the
about it.
servers.
I know Jim is. Next on our agenda is report on Polaris Career Center. Mrs. Bissell.
Thank you. Like Strongsville, Polaris is in a busy season, finishing up this year and getting ready for next year. But in the spirit of keeping things brief, I want to share 2 things tonight. One of them is if you have students interested or unsure about what they're doing next year academically or long-term, Polaris still has plenty of openings and opportunities for your students, so contact your guidance counselors for more information, or you can check out Polaris's website where you can see virtual tours and or schedule an in-person tour. And secondly, as promised, I have the 2021 National Technical Honor Society inductees, and I'm just going to read those names. They have been recognized in a separate ceremony, but for all of those Strongsville families, let's honor your students one more time. From this is main campus, Audrey Barno is a junior in the cosmetology program. Nicole Bodine is a junior in the Computer Networking Academy. Grace Botch is a junior in the Baking and Pastry Arts program. Mia Davis is a junior in the Criminal Justice program. And to continue on, they're all juniors for reference. Leanne Hawk in the Aeronautics program, Stephanie Mraz, Criminal Justice, Luke Rodak, Emergency Medical Technician and Fire Training, Kyra Jo Savage, Exercise Science and Rehab Therapy, Seth Van Hove, Construction Trades, and Connor White, Construction Trades. And then our students in the satellite campus, so these students take classes at our high school with Polaris teachers and instructors. These are engineering students. Mitchell Bem is a senior, Connor Chupek is a senior, Aaron Deal is a junior, Nicholas Hedersky, and I apologize to cut off your last name, is a senior, Jacob Huber Jr., Braden Kennedy Jr., Tristan McCran Senior, Emma Ogg Jr., Noah Reagan Jr., Joseph Sanook Jr., Zachary Taylor Jr., Charles Williams Senior, and Zoe Zilstra is a junior. So congratulations to all of these students for being members of the National Technical Honor Society for 2021. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Michelle. Report on legislation. Do you have an update, Sherry? And do you have any more? Or I'm just going to piggyback off of that. It is House Bill 110 is currently being considered by the Senate Finance Committee, who our State Senator Matt Dolan is the chairman of the Finance Committee, and there is a lot of discussion on whether the Fair Funding Act is going to get pulled from House Bill 110 and something else will be substituted or not. Last week, Cleveland.com, their editorial committee, did have I thought, a very good editorial on the issue. And so concerned parents and concerned citizens should contact Senator Dolan and let him know your opinion on this. But I do think it's important for us to continue to advocate one way or the other for fair funding for our schools. And that concludes my portion of legislation update. Board liaison reports. Let's start with City Council.
Yes, City Council met this past Monday night. They started with their Southwest update. There were 17 trustees appointed to represent cities serviced by the hospital. 3 of those appointed were from Strongsville. COVID numbers are continuing to decline very quickly. The hospital is relaxing visitor restrictions, and they have abundant PPE on hand. There was a vote to allow food trucks anywhere in the city. The sewer project is moving forward at Prospect and Albion. The start time projected is for about September. They'll install new storm sewers on the west side of the road and the east side rebuild catch basins. They won't be doing the roadway resurfacing at this time. They're going to do that at a later date. There was a resolution number 2021-081 stating the city is affirming their ongoing commitment to diversity. The rec center will continue to follow their current hours of operation, but on June 2nd, they will be dropping the mask mandate and social distancing. Finally, on May 31st at 11 a.m., the VFW will have a parade and memorial service at the gazebo on the Freedom Trail. The parade will assemble at St. Joseph prior to start. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Laura. Strongsville Education Foundation, I was able to attend the last meeting. I do want to recognize the Strongsville Education Foundation with their most recent grants has provided funds in an amount over $250,000, which I think is a great milestone for the foundation, and they deserve our thanks and congratulations. And as an example, we adjusted our budget during the treasurer's report, and they were able to purchase 8th grade math Chromebooks. And the Chromebooks at the 8th grade math level needed to have a little more oomph to them. And so this was a great way to provide those Chromebooks to the teachers and ultimately the students and maintain our financial prudence. On the senior salute night, they awarded over $10,000 in college scholarships to deserving students. And they are currently working on some creative ideas to fundraise that will tie our next fall's high school football fans and the NFL, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So we thank them for all their efforts and look forward to football in the fall. Next is Strongsville PTA Council. Thank you, Sherry. And last but not least, on liaison reports, student achievement.
Not to repeat too much, but obviously congratulations to all the DECA students, and especially the 14 national students that went to nationals, and also all the graduates. We got those coming up here another week, so congratulations to all the seniors and all the graduates that we get to the honor to see them walk across the stage here in just a few days. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Seth. Board committee reports. Finance Committee?
Next meeting June 1st.
Policy Committee? Our next meeting is to be announced. Facilities Committee?
Our next meeting is June 10th.
And Business Advisory Council Committee?
To be announced.
Next on our agenda is the consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of the consent calendar at this point of the agenda means all items with an asterisk are adopted in a single motion unless a member requests otherwise. Do I have any otherwise? Hearing none, we do have the one audible. Jenny, would you repeat them for me?
Sure. It is under E3, appointments for certificated supplemental contracts, extended time. Heather Koblenz, guidance counselor, should be at 6 days, and Stacy Petrosini should be at 4 days.
And everything else is as stated in the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? George, would you take the roll?
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee? Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries. Dr. Ryba, timely info.
So just a couple reminders, at the end of the year, there's always exciting events from spring concerts to award ceremonies, and just a reminder that all of that has been live streamed. It all lives on our SCS TV website, so if you weren't able to make it or just want to watch it again, don't forget to go to our website, strongnet.org. There's a shortcut on the side called SCS TV, and you can find all of those wonderful end-of-the-year events there to watch again or to see for the first time. On Monday, we're going to have a new event from our athletic department. It's the Strongsville High School Senior Athletic Awards, so May 24th at 7 p.m. The event is to recognize and honor all of our graduating student athletes, so that's a nice addition to the recognition program. And as we've talked about, some special weeks coming ahead for our seniors and our senior parents, our parents on the board. Commencement again, Sunday, May 30th. We're going to be outside at Packatan Stadium, A through L at 11 o'clock, M through Z at 3 p.m. We'll be watching the weather closely. Mr. Wingler's done a phenomenal job sharing out all the details, and there'll be another communication coming out shortly of all the nuances of commencement, especially with it being outdoors this year. And then prom and after prom, again, will be outdoors Saturday, June 6th. Prom starts at 6 p.m., after prom starts at 9 p.m., and everything will be on our campus here around the Packatan Stadium. And I just think it's a unique, special, very creative event, thanks to our after-prom committee and our PTA support. We'll have food trucks, we'll have events, we'll have games, we'll have dancing, and as of right now, we probably won't have masks, so, based on the board direction there. So, Ms. Hausum, any additions on those events?
Just, it's Sunday.
What did I say, Saturday?
Yes.
I just seen a few people were listening. So, yes, Sunday, June 6th. Thank you for the correction. And that concludes my update for timely information.
And I would assume that graduation will be live streamed.
Yes. So Dave and Scott Benson and their team and Dan have worked. It'll be. I think we've got plans for it to be seen on the scoreboard at the high school. Right? I'm not promising anything I shouldn't be. They're trying. They're working. They're working on the ability to live stream it, but it will be live streamed to our families. Yep.
I think it's just such a great event, and I think it's something the community would enjoy to be able to watch and witness. Board of Education Other, our first is board member professional development expenses. Be it resolved that the Strongsville City School Board of Education approves Sherry Buckner-Salese reimbursable expenses as outlined in the exhibit. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Again, Sherry, thank you for taking your education seriously. George, take the roll.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries. Any other Board of Education others? I have one, and I think with the state of COVID, it makes sense. I want to formally thank all of our SES crew members who have helped throughout the years, quite often behind the scenes. They have given their time and energy to provide a truly valuable service to the Strongsville community. And I want to especially thank those who have helped during the last two school years. With all the fluctuations in the state's COVID-19 protocols, you have all given your time and your talent to make the lives of our students and their families a little brighter. And I think because of COVID, we all recognize how important that is more than ever before. You have made it possible for our community to enjoy many of our district activities while remaining in the safety of their homes and still share the pride and love for our students, their accomplishments, and their dreams. And I'm excited that while it was done out of necessity, we'll be able to continue that and continue to share our student activities and accomplishments for the entire community. But I'm going to take the time to name those crew members and congratulate them. And all of these people have helped with SES TV productions during the last 2 years. And that would be Luke Bobick, Sam Chuganoff, Noah Collins, Nicasio Cruz, Merrill Edelman, Luke Fearman, Michael Gallagher, Patrick Gallagher, Jacob Hershkovitz, Jack Laricente, Sarah Smith, Nick Whalen, and Matthew Wilkinson. And I also wanted to give a shout out to my two favorite today, and that would be Alex Littlejohn and George Gruel, who are our cameramen for our meeting today. But I wanted to congratulate everyone. We forget to congratulate the AV crew, so I wanted to take time out to say thank you for all your efforts and keep up the good work. We do have reason for executive session on the topics of
To consider the employment of a public employee and to consider the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or student.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Hearing none. George, take the roll.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee? Mr. Miko?
Yes. The motion carries. We will enter into executive session at 9:45. We have no expectation of further business. Thank you for your attention, and good luck and congratulations to our graduates.